welcome one and all to your Thursday thrill on the Football Ramble. And my goodness, what a thrill it is to be with you, Luke Moore, talking about England once again.
Well, what a thrill it is for both of us to have this very, very much needed welcome international break, 3 games into the bloody boring Premier League season. It's exactly what we need. You wait a long old time for the old Premier League season to run round. You get excited, and then as soon as you get up and running, fantastic!
Yeah.
There's England are playing Republic of Ireland on Saturday night. Great.
Unbelievable. I'll be honest with
buzzing,
you.
Mate.
This international week caught me out as well.
Lee Carsley for a derby for his first game.
It is the Lee Carsley derby, after all.
It is, very much so.
Could be also called the Jack Grealish derby or the Declan Rice derby.
Declan Rice
derby. Yeah.
Or some other derbies that we won't mention.
Come on. Lee didn't play for England, of course, whereas Declan Rice has played for both. He made his choice, much to the anger of the Irish fans. So they'll have their say, no doubt. But we're focusing on Lee Carsley's England, of course, at the moment. The Brummie is in the hot seat, as I said. We've known the squad. There's been a few notable call-ups, Angel Gomez being one of them. Morgan Gibbs-White, I don't think that's a huge surprise. He's played well, and we've seen him play in the Premier League. I think Gomez is more of a surprise because we haven't been seeing him in the Premier League of late. Tino Livramento is in there, which again is not a huge shock, of course. Noni Madueke, after his exploits in Wolverhampton, the hat-trick, not the slagging off of the town, have earned him a call.
It's a great sitcom. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, Carsley, being from Birmingham, maybe he thought to himself, "Oh, he's slagging off Wolverhampton. He's my man." So you just got to appeal to Carsley in some kind of way. Yeah. Like the stuff he likes, don't like the stuff he doesn't like.
Do you reckon he said that to Noni Madueke? He said, "Look, you're doing all the right things, but the one box you haven't ticked yet is you've not really slagged off any of my local rivals. So can you please have a think about that, and then we'll see what we can do for you."
You see, there you are. Yeah. So,
the big talking points. I mean, you've gone through quite a lot of the personnel, but the big talking point is probably Angel Gomez, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
We watch football all the time. This is our job. We have to do all this stuff. Not everyone does, and I think there's a huge feeling among a lot of fans that if a player, unless they're a really big name player, goes and plays overseas, maybe for a slightly unfashionable or fairly unknown club for your average Common or Garden football fan, they're not going to be that well known about. And I would have thought, I know who Angel Gomez is, but I wasn't expecting to be in the England squad, and I didn't think he would be selected. So that's a surprising one for a lot of people, myself included. But when you start to break it down, it kind of makes sense, right? He's played under Lee Carsley in the under-21s. He's having a great time over in France, and crucially, as terms of a profile of a player, he's obviously fantastic at keeping the ball. A lot of the numbers bods, a lot of the data crunching boffins have shown with graphs and charts how good he is in terms of his European rivals at things like ball retention under pressure and receiving the ball under pressure. And I think it's quite an exciting thing that Lee Carsley has been brave enough in his first England squad to say, "Do you know what? This guy's done the business for me. I've looked at what England are good at and what they're not good at, and I think this would improve us, and I'm going to show you why." I really like that, and I think it's a great addition to the squad. The other ones you mentioned, Madueke's had a great start to the season. He's really shined, perhaps in the way that Cole Palmer started to shine last season at Chelsea under all that kind of chaos. Morgan Gibbs-White, for me, has been knocking on the door for a long old time, and Tino Livramento is a sensible one because England weirdly have 5 million fullbacks, but there's always a conversation about which ones are fit and which ones are in form or which ones are actually playing at fucking fullback. Yeah. So that makes sense to me as well. So I'm excited by the squad. I think it's a good statement of intent from Carsley. And so it'll be interesting to see what team he actually goes with on Saturday. I mean, how do you feel about all that stuff I've said there?
Well, I would echo your thoughts there. I think that this is the first time in a while we've seen someone who isn't Gareth Southgate manage England. And, we loved old gorgeous Gareth, but I think we would all agree. And
we were in Gareth's gang.
We were in Gareth's gang.
We had the badge and everything.
We did, and then waistcoat. And but I mean, look, he's gone, and he decided to go, and I think that's probably right. I think he did his time, and it was. I personally enjoyed it. Others didn't, but I did. So first time in a while, and he leaves the England setup in a far healthier place than what it was before. And the FA have turned to Lee Carsley, the under-21s manager, as they did in desperation, really, when they turned to Southgate. So I like this appointment with Lee Carsley. And we'll talk more about that kind of thing in the second half when we get to listeners' questions. But I think there's something exciting about it. After reaching the Euros final, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't particularly entertaining. And some will argue long into the night that Southgate could have got a bit more out of those players. And I don't think that's an unfair argument necessarily. So with Carsley...
But you mean how about how he went about it, you mean?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And being a little bit more entertaining on the pitch and that kind of thing. Carsley's England under-21s were very good to watch in the summer of 2023. And he has brought in some of the personnel that he used in that tournament to do it. So all quite exciting, and I think with Angel Gomez is the one I think that catches the eye again, just because we don't know that much about him or haven't seen him that much in the Premier League, and it's an area of the pitch you've rightly highlighted where England kind of struggle a little bit. So if Carsley can play the type of football that he wants to play with the England senior side, it'll be good. It just will be. Yeah. Because he immediately, when he took the job, he said, I want to play an expansive style. But he's obviously well aware of England's shortcomings. We all are, for crying out loud. There's people who have just glanced at England a couple of times over the years, and they know that ball retention that you speak about is something where they've really, really struggled. So if a player like him can come in, I mean, it's a lot to ask, of course. Suddenly, he's the missing piece. Right, we're on for the World Cup, lads. Let's not be silly here.
No, that's what I am thinking. And I am going to be silly about it. If he plays well against Ireland, if he plays well against Ireland, it's going to be unbearable for me.
Yeah, and a great name as well. I mean, England, Anglia, Angleterre, Angel. It all just fits.
Think of the tabloid headlines. I mean, I know no one reads tabloid newspapers anymore.
No,
but you could, if Angel becomes like, a really important player for England, the headline writers are going to be so happy.
Exactly.
So happy.
So happy.
Yeah, think of your John Crosses. I know he doesn't write the headlines, but John Cross will be delighted. And we got to be thinking about whether we're really pleasing that your John Crosses, or in some cases your Henry Winters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Henry, he'll be loving it. My man, Henry.
Henry's always loving it.
Of course he is. So I think it is. There's been nice additions. It could all come crashing back down to earth if England stink out the place and lose 1-0 away in Ireland. But there's plenty of familiar faces as well. So Harry Maguire's back in the squad again. People will think, "Well, why has he done that?" Again, as a senior centre half, I think it's absolutely fine. I mean, Mark Gay's in there. You'd imagine Gay and Stones, they're the two starters, surely now for England. You would think it would be. Yeah. I'd be surprised if Gay, went back to being the third choice centre half and Maguire got in there. Jack Grealish with his little playing time in the Premier League in there as well, which I think.
I thought you were going to say Jack Grealish with his little friend or something. Jack Grealish, with his little friend, with his little calves, his little earring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's in there, which is always enjoyable.
So look, here's what I would just say. Sorry to cut in, but I want to kind of put a pointy end on this, and I want to say that, no, not in that way. Come on. The idea is that there is a political element to a manager of Lee Carsley's profile on an interim basis, naming his first squad. I'm not saying he's being political about it. I'm saying there's a political dimension to it because it gives you information about what he's thinking. And I actually think it's quite a big statement to bring in Angel Gomez for the reasons I've already discussed, but also to bring back Harry Maguire is also a big statement, and bringing back Jack Grealish is, and for slightly different reasons, but I'll explain why. It's the easiest thing in the world when you're a new manager in this situation to go, new broom, this is my thing, this is what I'm doing. I'm sure he does know Harry Maguire in some capacity. I'm sure he's worked with him or seen him in the past or been close to him because of the England connection anyway. But he can just say, we're moving forward now, right? We're moving forward. Harry Maguire's got however many caps he's had over the years. I think it's like over 60 now. He's essentially had his England career, and we're going to move past it. He doesn't have to physically say those things, but that's what he could state by doing it. Jack Grealish as well. He's basically saying with Jack Grealish, who has done really nothing to really, I mean, deserve is a strong word, but he's done nothing really to be recalled. I mean, nothing. This conversation hasn't really moved on. Yeah. since he was left out in the summer. He's part of a big operation at Man City. He sometimes contributes, he sometimes doesn't. Last season he wasn't that great. Nothing has really changed at the start of this season, particularly by the time the squad was announced. So what is interesting about this is the way that Carsley's thinking. He's clearly thinking, I like players who can carry the ball. Mm-hmm. I like players that will maybe make things happen, and I trust the Jack Grealish to do it, even though he's not been in great form. I want to put my own mark on this squad, hey, Angel Gomez, because I want to show people that I'm happy to make big decisions. Mm-hmm. And I want Harry Maguire back in because, as you say, senior centre-half, he'll give me a bit of help in terms of experience around the camp, probably. To me, it looks like he's almost auditioning for the role properly, because what he could have done is he could have done a proper don't rock the boat squad, and he hasn't done that. And that should be exciting for us, because I think it shows that the guy actually wants the job, and he's not there just to kind of hold hands, and he's not intimidated by it, and he's not just tiding us over until next big name thing comes along. I actually think, I wasn't on the show when you talked a while back about them bringing in Carsley, which of course you were totally right about, with a view to having a much more high profile appointment later on. The only thing I disagree with you on that was that I don't think the FA should do that. I think if Carsley carries on, I just think, what we need at the England manager's job? Someone who gets out of the way, like just a custodian who is tactically good enough, but who's not gonna suck in all the gravity.
Yeah, so we will talk about Carsley and whether or not he can become manager rather than interim manager as time goes on for England. So we'll talk about that in the second half, but appreciate your thoughts there. Just before we go for...
Was that a telling off? A little bit.
More a bit of guidance, I think. Just
much needed.
More encouragement, really.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. I'm just trying to encourage you to not get told off. So
as my interim manager.
So you're right to say that about Carsley, though, because obviously Harry Kane and one or two other senior players questioned Southgate when he didn't take Maguire and Grealish to the Euros, and they were a bit upset because, again, senior players, big personalities, popular lads as well in the dressing room and all that. So I think it's quite wise. You don't want to do like Steve McLaren did when he came in and go, right, Beckham's out. And you just think, what? But he's still one of the most talented players. No, it's me. And then, of course, he has to bring him back and help save the day, which he nearly did, but not quite. So you don't want to do that. But it's good that he's brought forward some of the under-21 lads, as we said, because it gives them a bit of encouragement. And Southgate did that as well. Southgate did that with one or two players here and there. And I just think that gives it a little bit more of a joined-up kind of approach. The players that Carsley's not picked that were in the Euro 2024 squad, Ivan Toney, we get that. Kyle Walker, again, he said it's because he's not played anything for Man City. They're sort of gently bringing him back into the season after a tough summer. If Kyle Walker wants to play, I'd imagine he would. Aaron Ramsdale, goalkeeper. Luke Shaw's injured. Jude Bellingham's injured. Adam Wharton is slightly surprising, but he's in the under-21s. Joe Gomez hasn't played that much, might be a touch disappointed, but if he starts playing, he'll be there. Lewis Dunk and Kieran Trippier. And Trippier, of course, retired from international football. So I don't think it's anything controversial. Marcus Rashford isn't even shooting on that goal, let alone scoring goals. And James Maddison might feel a touch disappointed, but he was probably more on the fringes of Carsley's thoughts anyway. Phil Foden, Cole Palmer, Ollie Watkins have all had to withdraw from the squad due to a mixture of illness and injury. So yet to be determined whether he's going to replace them with anybody. We haven't seen that yet. So I think Carsley is so far so good, really, with regards to his start.
But we don't know, do we? Because we haven't seen a game.
But if you're Carsley, you don't want to start getting sensationalist headlines. As I say, I go back to what McLaren did. You don't want to start doing that bollocks. But at the same time, you don't want to just be a complete yes company man. You want to say, okay, this is what I'm about, but I'm not going to be. There's no knee-jerky reactions. With the tabloids.
It's kind of the difference between not picking Ivan Toney, presumably because he's gone to Saudi Arabia
or not played.
But the way that Ronald Koeman reacted when Steven Bergwijn went to Saudi Arabia was slightly different, wasn't it?
Yeah, right. Coming up in the second half, we'll be answering your questions ahead of England's upcoming fixtures against Ireland and Finland, and we will be deciding who we think should be England's starting right back for the next international cycle.
Exciting, isn't it?
It is indeed. See you in a moment.
Hi, I'm Dion Dublin, and when I'm not banging my dube, I'm listening to the Football Ramble.
Welcome back to the Football Ramble, everybody. Right, Luke, you've got the first question.
I have. It's from Alu on X. Hello to you, Alu. Thanks for getting in touch. He says, seeing as Lee Carsley is interim manager, how well does he have to perform in order to be offered the job on a permanent basis? And do you think he can/will do it? Well, that's like 3 questions in a row.
Alu's done very well there.
He's been very efficient there.
Yeah, very crafty, I might say. Well, you mentioned this in the first half. I think that if Lee Carsley does a good job, he will become the manager. The only way... There's only 2 ways I don't think he'll become the manager. He doesn't do very well, or he doesn't convince, or it's a bit patchy, or it's nothing too inspiring. And then they turn to a more experienced manager, say like Graham Potter, for example. Or whatever happens, if Guardiola fancies it, then they'll turn to Guardiola.
This keeps coming up.
Yeah, that's the only thing I would say.
Is this viable? Are you always talking about this?
Well, because Guardiola himself has said that he'd like to manage an international team. And we know that this could be, I say we know it could be, what a sentence that is. We suspect it could be his last season as Manchester City boss. If he was to stay on at Man City past the summer, I think it's Carsley's, barring a disaster. So I think my bet would be that the safe money would say Carsley will lead England into the World Cup. Outside long shot would be Guardiola, or say if Eddie Howe gets sacked by Newcastle, or as I say, Potter's still available, and it doesn't quite work out with Carsley, and you think this isn't really working. Guardiola's obviously not fancy it, whatever. We'll turn to a more experienced English manager, but I don't think it will come to that. I think Carsley's going to do a decent job. So I think that he can, and I think he would do it. I think he would be up for it. Yeah.
What I would add is just that I think it's probably at this point, as we sit here now, neither of us can predict the future, but it's probably his to lose.
Yes.
You know, I feel like, I touched on this in the first half, I feel like what England actually need is someone that just gets out of their own way and can just can do the job with the sort of profile that Southgate started out doing it as. I mean, obviously, it's easy to, it's quite easy to forget that actually the massive figure, the massive unifying, hugely famous figure in this country that Gareth Southgate became, he wasn't necessarily that at all at the start. People were a bit like, okay, so he's never really done anything in management, and he's been in the under-21s, and he's gonna just we're at rock bottom, so he's just gonna kind of see us through it and be almost a bit of a kind of head teacher type figure. Well, it turned out this is exactly what England needed, right? And without going into the detail of his reign, because people have their own opinions on that, it was a successful reign. He's the most successful manager England have ever had since Sir Alf Ramsey. So that speaks for itself. I wonder whether that's part of a pattern that we'll see in the future with England, where actually it's such a high-profile squad and so many big players that they just need someone who buys into the aesthetic and the culture of what it's all about, and just, like I say, stays out of the way. But I mean that in a nice way. I don't mean that as in a kind of Avram Grant at Chelsea kind of way. I mean it in a kind of well, you know what I mean. I think the listeners know what I mean. So if he can do that, and all that we see in terms of a change is the culture is exactly the same and everything feels the same, but the football's slightly better, and he's got his own ideas because he's a different person, and I think that's fine. So I think he if you look at the betting exchanges at the moment, he's the overwhelming favourite to stay on. So it's almost like it's his job to lose, really. Like I say, if they go to Ireland, stink the place out, lose, follow that up with another loss, and then maybe never really recover, then he's not going to keep the job. But other than that, I think he will.
If England get relegated to Nations League Group C, and then I think we need to get Warnock in to get us out of that. It would be like that, quite frankly.
And I also think, of course he will do it. Of course he will take the job. I've told you already in the first half, what his squad is a massive audition for what he wants to do, and you'd expect that, no one, I don't personally believe, and I mean this with the greatest respect, it's very rare that someone thinks that the under-21s job at England is going to be their end game, the sum total of all their ambitions. So that makes sense. And do I think he can do it? Yeah, I mean, I think he can do it. I wondered if Southgate could do it, and he could. And I see a lot of similarities. So international football's a very different beast to Premier League football.
And because of Southgate, that's why they've gone for Carsley, and that's why there's nobody really questioning it at the moment. And Luis de la Fuente winning it with Spain in the summer.
Exactly.
Again, people just go, oh, okay, then maybe this is a bit different.
It's an example I was going to use as well. I think, given the track record of the FA when it comes to appointing England managers, the reality is, up until Southgate, by the standards that we've all established or decided we want as England fans and as a culture in this country around for the England team, it's not worked.
I mean, and the money that they wasted on like Capello and all the rest of it.
Yeah, so why wouldn't they just repeat the one thing that did work? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
In some ways, that's the very brave decision to just go, right, we're going to fucking double down. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I mean, it comes down to results. Always with this stuff. It comes down to results as well.
It does. Got a question from Robert on Instagram. He said, in your opinion, who should be England's starting right back for the next international cycle? Carl Walker, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Rico Lewis, or somebody else?
Well, do you know what? That's actually a really tough question.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it was Carl Walker for so long, and we thought, we've got loads of right backs. And then you kind of go, this question is very relevant.
Yeah, and it is relevant because I think Carl Walker's 34 now, right? So, and the position he plays, I know he's a phenomenal athlete. In fact, he's a bit of an outlier of how good an athlete he is and how quick he still is. But he's 34. That's the reality. Mm-hmm. So it's not just the case that I'm not saying he couldn't play right back for England at 34, but what I do think is at some point he's not going to play as regularly for Man City, and then he's going to have to make a decision, and that decision may or may not work out. And if he gets into a position where he's just not playing, it will become a completely different conversation.
Yeah, he'll be 36 in the World Cup.
Exactly. What's interesting, though, if you're just taking the three examples that Robert uses in the question, Carl Walker, we just talked about that, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Rico Lewis, I mean, the problem is, if you look at just this season alone so far, they're not really playing at right back. Mm-hmm. Both of them have been playing midfield. Yeah. They're not specialist fullbacks now. So that creates its own problem, because what we're seeing is the way that Liverpool and Man City in this case play is, of course, very different to how England play so far. So it's about squaring that circle and thinking to yourself, well, if you've got Rico Lewis, who's still only 19, he'll be 20 this season. He has played a lot in the Premier League so far this season. I know we're only a few games in, but I think he's played every game, every minute. But he's played all three of those I think all three of those, certainly more than two of those, I think, in defensive midfield. Mm-hmm. So, that becomes almost a philosophical question. So then you've got to look at the other players around the squad, and I wonder whether Carsley would prefer to have a right back that actually plays right back every week. I mean, I don't know the answer to that question yet, because I just don't think that we know.
So, Livramento?
Livramento is the next one it's worth talking about.
Well, the answer is Reece James, if he sorts his injuries out. That is the answer.
That's been so long now.
Well, it has, but I mean, he's still only 24, so he's still fairly young. But if he can get back and have a proper season with Chelsea and not have any injury setbacks, because the poor fella's been in and out of the side due to that. That is the answer to the question. Carl Walker said not that long ago on the BBC, who do you think will be your successor at right back? And he went, Reece James. He's got everything. Yeah. In fact, Carl Walker said he suggested that actually Reece James was a better player, although he didn't want to go too far because he didn't want to maybe talk himself out of being in the side. But it is Reece James if he can get back to it. But that is a big if, because the last year or two, however long it's been, my goodness, it's been very difficult for him.
When all these right backs started coming through, and we had all these options. I said to you, and I said it on the show, I think Reece James is the best of them, and Carl Walker's totally right. He can do it all, but the problem is he's had this hamstring thing that's dogged him for so long that he had to go into surgery just before Christmas, and he's missed the whole season, and. It could be another Ben Chilwell situation where he just cannot get fit. I hope not.
What about Ben White?
Yeah, so is that a clean slate situation with Lee?
Well, Carsley said he was unavailable as far as he was aware. I suspect Ben White's probably done at international football, because I think for Ben White, he, all that's written, all that's said, I wonder if it's not a case of, look, you're going to be a starter. I wonder if he's not that fussed. I don't know. That I'm just purely guessing here, because we know sort of fairly little about the situation. So if Ben White was to declare himself fit, then I think that would be an intriguing option, especially if Carsley's going to go for Saka on that right side, because obviously the partnership we know that they have at Arsenal. So I just wanted to mention he's not in the squad, and he's saying he's still unavailable, so I don't want to go to town on that one, but just a little mention for Ben White.
So he basically said that he doesn't want to be considered for selection. Southgate denied that there was an issue, but then it was reported after that there's a big bust up between him and Holland in front of the rest of the squad in Qatar. And after that, he didn't want to be considered. Now, that regime's not there anymore. So I wondered why. That's why I asked if it's a clean slate.
Well,
listen, I don't mean this to criticise Ben White, because he's his own human being and he's got his own priorities, and whatever's right for him is what he should be doing. You've got to prioritise yourself. I'm not accusing him of being kind of treacherous or anything like that. But ultimately, if I can make a point in the most neutral way possible. If it's just the case that he doesn't want to be selected unless he definitely starts every game, then you're better off without him.
That's my.
It has to be a squad game, right? Have you seen the camaraderie in the squad? The squad really look at the attitude of, say, Connor Cody and one or two others.
Lewis Duncan, Joe Gomez. These people.
They're delighted to be there, right? And that's what you want. You want people who want to be there. It's not a criticism of Ben White personally, but if that is the case, as what you said there, then you just might as well just not bother worrying about it.
He has done that. Before in the Euros in 2021, but look, we're now trying to get into the mindset of Ben White, which is perhaps unwise. So let's move on to the next question.
In summary, there's loads of options. I just wish a lot more of them would actually play right back. That would be good.
And I wish that Reece James would get fit, but I'm sure that Reece wants that more than I do.
Wants that more? Yeah, I imagine he wants that more than you. Yeah.
Right, this is from Dan on email. Which player from outside the current squad do you think could be impactful for England over the next couple of years? Reece James, I would say.
See our previous answer.
To be serious, Dan, outside of the current squad, I'd say Jude Bellingham.
Easy one. He's done you there.
I think though, it might be an obvious answer because he was in the Euro squad, didn't play there, but Adam Wharton, perhaps?
Yeah, I was going to talk about Adam Wharton, chiefly because I think you have to caveat it by saying we need to work out what kind of team Lee Carsley wants England to be.
Yeah.
And if the Angel Gomez call up and the kind of receiving the ball under pressure, keeping hold of the ball type thing is the way he wants to do things, and we know that he plays different to how Southgate wants his team to play, then Adam Wharton could be equally as important. So I think it is informed by the type of team he wants to be. But there's loads of them. And if you look at the squads that England have relied upon over the last couple of years of Southgate and the players he's kind of used, there's literally about 50 good players.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So take your pick is what I would say. But I think if he wants to play with control and he wants to change slightly how Southgate did it, I think, Gomez, Wharton, there's one or two others in there, ball playing centre backs, etc., etc. So that would be my answer, I would say.
Yeah, just perhaps to name one of those centre halves, Jared Branthwaite.
Branthwaite's another good example.
Had his injuries, but very highly rated. I know a few Evertonians were particularly.
But you might be careful though, because you might be a Championship player. I don't mean on loan.
No, but some of them were very disappointed, sickened even that he didn't make the Euro squad. But yeah,
I was one of those people, and I'm not an Evertonian, so I get it.
How about that? You got the final question.
Yeah, I wonder what you're going to answer to this. This is from Paul on Instagram. Hello to you, Paul. He says, if you were Lee Carsley, what song would you play in the dressing room before kick-off to get the lads ready for a big game?
Oh, I think I'd have a live acoustic performance from Ed Sheeran. Get them up for it.
Right, whoever's listening to this and had Pitbull on the bingo card, you're out of luck there. Because I've got, in my mind, I'm imagining a bingo card and every single box is Pitbull.
I just wanted to wipe everybody out. I think that if he for the Ireland game, if he plays Sally McLennan or anything by the Pogues, he'll be like, hang on, Lee, no, you've
where do your loyalties lie?
Exactly, you got it wrong. We're not. You've wound the clock back 25 years. I think Pitbull is the obvious choice. I think it's bringing everybody together, quite frankly.
Yeah,
but my fear with Pitbull though, Luke, is that if the opposition team, wherever they are from around the world, if they heard that playing as well, it'd get them up for it. You know what Pitbull does?
True. Exactly, which is why I'd go for Hammer Smashed Face by Cannibal Corpse.
Right, I don't know who Hannibal Smashed Faced or Cannibal Corpse is, but they sound like a delightful pair.
You don't know Cannibal Corpse?
No.
I'm disappointed to hear that.
Why? What does he... Cannibal Corpse. Is it all good family stuff, is it?
Yeah, it's great. It's fun for all the family, man. Legendary death metal band.
Oh, right.
I think. Look, I'll be totally honest. It's unlikely. I think that might be a low percentage play by Lee to start smashing that out to the England squad.
I think the obvious answer is in the times that we live in. The one thing that has united a lot of people around this country is their their disdain and hatred for Ticketmaster. So I'd play a bit of Oasis.
Oasis, exactly.
Classic Oasis.
They've distanced themselves yesterday. Did you see that? They've distanced themselves. We had no idea this was happening.
Yeah.
We just got told we're going to earn 400 million quid. We didn't look at the detail.
We thought everyone
Sorry
paid for
about that. We didn't really think about where the money was coming from. Anyway, we're getting off topic. But I think Pitbull is the obvious answer.
Yeah.
You know, don't stop the party.
All that.
If you hear that, listen, I just think, you know, you can talk about us being cliched, always talking about Pitbull all you like. But if you're listening to this, picture yourself as an opposition player to England, walking down the tunnel towards the pitch, and the England team is still in the dressing room, and you walk past the door, and you're hearing "Don't Stop the Party." I know you're quaking in your boots.
You either want to be part of it.
These guys mean business.
Yeah, you want to be a part of it, don't you? I think you
I
think you take your jersey off straight away, and you knock on the door.
You want to run in there and be with the lads.
Say, I want to switch allegiances now.
Well, you run around 5 miles away and never see him again because you're terrified. So the answer is always Pitbull, Paul, and I hope that does answer your question.
There we are.
And
Carsley's a fellow notable egg like Pitbull.
He is. The notable eggs are everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
What I like about Pitbull is his actual name is Armando Perez, which I think is actually a pretty cool name.
Yeah.
I think he could have gone with that and he'd still be famous.
It's a perfectly fine name. Okay.
His real name's actually Mr. Worldwide.
Yeah, his alias is Mr. 305.
Yeah, what does that mean? That's the dialing code from Miami.
It's something to do with some.
It must be that.
It must be. Of course, it is.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an upload. A single upload. Don't miss out on the uploads. The uploads are important.